All right, welcome everyone to today's episode on the Global Love Podcast. My name is Rosalia Shiwever. I'm your host. And today I'm joined by an esteemed author who is part of the Visual Book Tour 2024. This episode is brought to you in partnership, the Global Love Podcast in partnership with Visual Book Tour 2024. And obviously, now I'm only recording here with the guest who is in studio with us. However, we will be expecting some audience to come in and out, maybe talk to the guest or ask a few questions. However, before that, let's get started with the episode. I would just love to share with the listeners that this podcast is mainly focused on love, to share love within a community of the diaspora or people living abroad. And we're so glad to be on board in partnership with the Visual Book Tour to share some love stories, share love journeys, and also just share great authors' work on storytelling. And let me introduce my guest. Her name is Sonji. I'm sorry for pronouncing your name. It's such a unique name. And before we started recording, I was asking what's the meaning of your name. And you shared that Sonji means wisdom. That's really a unique name. So I would love to say welcome to today's episode, Sonji. And please introduce yourself. Tell the audiences about yourself, your background, and also why are we here? We are talking about your story that you wrote. You can also say the title of the book. And yeah, let's get started.
Thank you, Rosalia. I really appreciate being on the show today. So as Rosalia has said, my name is Sonji. My author name is S.N. Clayton. And my book that I'm in the process of publishing at the moment, it should be ready at some point during the summer. It's actually on pre-order at the moment, is called A Shared History. And it's the first book in a 3-part series called Black Victorians. It's book 1. And the series is about Black and mixed race Victorians living in London who were part of the elite in London. And that's the first 2 books. And then the 3rd book will actually take place. One of the characters will actually go to America. So the 3rd book would take place in New York at the beginning and then kind of settle in the Black West of America. So really, I'm just trying to tell stories that aren't that well known and aren't written about that much in the fiction world. They're written about quite a bit these days in the non-fiction world, so from a sort of historical, factual perspective. But I wanted to kind of mix the 2 kind of genres of Black history and romance, and just in an entertaining way, what I call edutainment.
Okay, right. We are so glad to have you here. You mentioned about your professional name, or the name you say S.N. Clinton, right?
Yeah. So the author name is
it
S.N. Clayton. Yeah.
Clayton, all right? Or is that your official name? Is that a name that the audience can use to search for you online?
Definitely. Yeah.
Right? Okay. For today, you would love me to call you Miss Clinton, or please clarify for me?
Just call me Sonji. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
always revealed. My first name is Sonji. So if you know, it's you choose a pen name. I decided to choose a pen name because I've got other things going on and projects going on, and I didn't want people to get mixed up. So I just thought, let me just choose a pen name, which was just my initials, SN, and then Clayton, my surname. So my name is Sonji Clayton, basically. Do you know what I mean? So it is the same name. So you'd still be able to connect me. But I just thought, let me have a pen name, which will just differentiate from anything else that I'm doing, potentially. So yeah, my website is under the name snclayton.com. So everything is snclayton.com.
All right. No, that's great. Great clarity as well. I would love to know who, before you became a writer, or maybe get to know who is this person, maybe or share with us your background. Where did you grow up? How was your upbringing like? And how did it that upbringing bring you to this place where you want to share about stories?
Well, I grew up in Tottenham, which is in North London in the UK. Jamaican parents. My parents came here in the 60s and got married. And then they split. They had a divorce around the 70s. And then I grew up with my mum. My mum was a great reader. So she loved romance. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with Mills and Boon. Before Mills and Boon, they were quite big back then, but they've expanded a lot into other divisions like Harley Quinn and all that. So my mum was really into Mills and Boon. So we used to go to the library weekly, pretty much. Not so much for her, but for me, because I was a bit of a bookworm. So I used to finish my books so quickly. So she wouldn't have finished her books, but she'd have to bring me back to the library to get more books. And then once I got to a certain age, instead of me saying to my mom, "Oh, take me to the library again," I would just literally start reading her books. So she'd be like checking to see if it's okay for me to read. So I'd be reading her books. And I think that's really how I got into the romance side of things. But I've always been a reader of a wide genre of books. So I love, you know, young adult stuff when I was growing up. I loved the historical with a black core world. Fantasy. I used to love fantasy a lot when I was young, actually. Sci-fi, you name it. You know, chick licks. I would read anything, basically. I'm a thirsty reader. But I think romance readers are the thirstiest readers. Do you know what I mean? Like, they just cannot get enough in terms of the books. So I think with my mum's influence and always writing, English was really one of my favorite subjects. And I could read and write before I started school at 5, and that's down to my mum. So really her influence is very integral to me having a love of reading and having a love of English and writing. She always encouraged my writing. So yeah, I would say that's the influence. And also in North London, it's very multicultural, multi-class, multiracial. You come across all different types of people, and it kind of introduces you to the world. So you become very worldly before you've even got anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So I think that upbringing is quite a unique upbringing, and I kind of bring that setting into my story. Yeah.
That's really, really cool to hear. And I cannot imagine how diverse that was, especially growing up now in Northern London, as you mentioned. And the diverse of different culture, different people from different backgrounds just in one place. I have understanding of that. I've been living in China for over 12 years, and I can have a glimpse of how we meet so many different peoples from different parts of the world. Maybe not as diverse as Northern London, if you're according to your experience, but I'm so much intrigued to know more about other cultures, how we all are the same, but so many from different parts of the world.
That's
And
right.
also that diverse comes to you as an individual, and it shapes you in a way that sometimes you really don't understand, you know. Even the reason why we created the Global Love podcast, it's really from the birth of a lot of diasporas in China are like speaking of, hey, how easy is it to get love, especially true love, deep love, and like authentic love within the diaspora community. I would love you to share light on how has your journey of loving while in a different country, obviously part of the global community and diverse culture. How has that been like before we get to the story, which is a shared history that you have written so far? I would love you to shed light on love and experiencing love in Northern London.
I think in terms of love, I don't know what to say my experiences. I suppose it's very varied. Because I think growing up, I don't think people mixed as much, not in my time. So when growing up in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, people they mixed socially, but relationship wise, not so much. So you didn't see it that often. Mixed relationships, for example, people kind of stuck to their own culture, but yet we mix socially. Does that make sense? But when it came to the relationships, they kind of stuck to their own culture. So, but as time kind of went on, and you've got more and more generations like going to school together, etc., it was kind of more of a thing in that respect. But I think for me growing up, relationship wise, it was more, I think, where would you sort of like, it was very much connected to that social side of things. So I think also as Black people, we had like a strong social structure. So you would have places that where you kind of have your safe space kind of thing. So you'd have like, we'd have our own clubs, we'd have our own wine bars, we'll have our own, we even had our own cinema at one point, Electric Cinema in Portobello Road. Don't know if anybody from the UK is listening and remembers that. So there was lots of opportunities, you know, and what we call shebeens. We call like shebeens, like little drink ups, little, you know, little meeting places that you could go to. So I think, and then of course, if you were into church, you go to church. So these are the places really that you would meet people. You would meet, you know, people, and then, you know, you exchange a number, you have a little chat, and you just get, you know, you date or whatever, and then you get into a relationship in that regards. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's I think I had quite a positive experience of dating. I found it quite fun, you know, when I was younger, to be honest with you, because it was just such a great social infrastructure. And I think also there was a culture of men having a bit of chat, gift of the gab. So it was a bit of a joke, you know, the back and forth, which I don't think it's so much a thing now with the whole social media and all this. And, you know, it's just a different type of thing. But there was you had to, like, guys had to have the talk, you know, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
In that respect, because they'd be doing all this talk and making you laugh. And so it was quite fun. I think back then it was quite fun, as in comparison to now. Do you know what I mean? In terms of all this online dating and I don't know. I think people have lost that joy of communicating face to face and interacting like that. So young girls, young boys, men, women. I think it's impacted on all generations. I'm of a slightly, you know, older generation. So yeah, I think for me, I really do have good memories of dating and, you know, that whole dating world and what have you. So you know, and you go through life, you have good relationships, you have bad relationships. But I think the key is to learn from both. You know, you learn from both. And I think it's really important. And I have this with when I write my books, I think it's really important as women and men to have very clear values on what you want and what you don't want. But I think the focus needs to be more on what you want, not what you don't want, and try and align those values to any potential partner in that respect. So, and I think you should treat people how you wish to be treated. I don't think it's that complicated, you know, but the reality is always a bit more complicated, doesn't it, than the theory of it. But I try to sort of impose that in my stories. My characters are not going to be putting up with any nonsense, you know. You know,
love that.
There's none of that. So I think they're quite strong characters, but they're also vulnerable. So I do like to show their vulnerable side, but I think they are characters with quite strong values, and you can see that in terms of how they carry themselves and how they interact with the main male characters in the stories. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Now let's speak on a shared history. You said is part of a book serial that you are working on. why did you decide that you would want to write this book titled A Shared History? And talking about the title, what inspired it? Is it a true story? Is it a fictional story? Maybe you can start sharing and digesting with the audience about your book or book serial from there.
So I'm still in the process of publishing. So I actually got a proof last week. Yes. So I'm going to show you the proof, because the proof is sent to you and then you do like the final proofreading. Yeah. So you're going to see all my post-its.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like, it's quite exciting.
Yes.
We're nearly there. But don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? Let me see if I can really get it.
You can.
Yeah. If I go
you
up.
can remove the for now. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Or not so clear. Maybe
you can see all the post-its and what have you, but you can see on the front the main character is Celia. And shall I just let me read a bit of the synopsis to you? Yeah.
Yes.
And I can explain how this all come about. So, a modern love story opens the door to a long ago love and a shared history. When Celia Robinson, a financially independent young Black woman living in London in 1880, comes to live in her adopted family's London townhouse for the season, she falls in love with her childhood friend, Edward Langdon, a white man from a wealthy family. Despite their affection, they keep their relationship a secret from Ed's grandmother, Lady Benwick, who is also Celia's guardian. Ed believes love can overcome anything. However, despite Celia's comfortable middle-class upbringing, she is doubtful and procrastinates over accepting his secret marriage proposal, only to uncover a darker truth. Fate soon intervenes when old flame Nathan, the son of a wealthy Sierra Leone merchant, returns to London from New York, stirring up dormant feelings. Meanwhile, deeply disturbing moral and financial predicaments are hidden from Celia to protect Ed's family and aristocratic legacy. And little do Ed and Celia know or realize the intricate web of manipulation that Lady Benwick is weaving behind the scenes. So that's a little bit of about Celia, the main character. She's obviously in a bit of a love triangle that she doesn't really expect to happen in terms of Ed, whose father was actually in the book. His father is her godfather, but he passed away a while back. So both their parents have passed away. And that's how Lady Benwick, his grandmother, becomes her guardian. So it's really about her. I think I wanted to sort of present the fact that, one, love can be more complex. It's not just, you know, you meet someone, you fall in love, and that's the end of that, and we will live happily ever after. You know, you can have feelings. You can have feelings. You can be conflicted. You know, you can have feelings for more than one person. So I thought I wanted to make it a little bit more complex in that respect and take people through that journey of how does she figure out, you know, which one is right for her in that respect. On the other side of things, I've always wanted to write a book, and I used to sort of just start, stop, could not get this book finished. Oh, I'll get to chapter 3 and I'll just be like, all right, I don't know what else to write, kind of thing. And it's weird because even my mom used to say, when are you going to finish these books? And I'll be like, I don't know how to finish them. Like, I don't know how to move the story forward. So I'll leave it and then start another book. And then I'll get stuck at chapter 3 or chapter 4 again. And I just could not figure it out. And I think after many, many years of doing that, I said, now it's time to get serious. And I gave myself a goal. I said, I'm going to write a book before I'm 50. I'm going to just write it and I'm going to figure out what the block is. And I just started reading books on writing. And ironically, you'd never believe this, I just never used to read books on writing before. I just used to write. Okay. I never used to read books on writing. I always used to say, I'm going to do a course, and I just never did. And so I started to read books about writing, etc., etc. And what I realized was, they say there's two types of writers. You're either a pantser or a plotter. And I realized I was a plotter, not a pantser. So all those times when I was starting the book, I was doing this pantsing. So I wasn't really creating a plot. I wasn't doing an outline. I'm a planner in real life anyway. My background is a business educator. So I'm a planner. You have to plan everything. And so that was the key to opening me up to realizing, that's the problem. And once I realized that was the issue, it just all, I just was able to write, I sort of thought, okay, let me start with short stories, do the plotting, do the planning, get into a little flow. And I did that. And I thought, okay, now time for this book. And I think I was a bit conflicted because I thought I'd love to write something historical. I'd love to write something romance. But I think for my first book, I don't want to do anything too serious in terms of non-fiction. So I didn't really know how I'm going to do this, but I think I kind of started to discover quite a few Black historical writers. So for example, I don't know if you've heard of one who is Beverly Jenkins. She's quite prolific in that genre. And Alyssa Cole, she's another one. And I think when I started reading Beverly Jenkins, I said, yeah, this is the genre that I want to write. This is it. And I think also my business head was talking, because I'm quite business minded. And I just thought, you know what, this is an arena where there is a high demand, but low supply of authors. So I think I could fit in this arena quite well, because I can kind of utilize my research skills and all the historical books that I've read. And I can actually use the story to set the record straight about the Black and mixed race presence and the diasporan presence within that in London during the 19th century. Because I believe there's a lot of misconceptions about our presence. People seem to have this impression that we weren't really here until the 1940s or the 1950s. And there were thousands of us here from the different colonies, from Africa, America, the Caribbean. We were here in England, in the port cities especially. So quite a high number in the 18th century. And it kind of those thousands did start to decrease throughout the 19th century, once slavery had been abolished. But I wanted people to know that, you know what, we were here, we were quite significant and impactful. As a diaspora, we were very much connected. You would never believe it, but we were very much connected. We traveled more than you would think. We communicated more than you would think. And we came from different backgrounds. Some of us were born here. Some of us were born in the colonies, the Caribbean colonies. Some were born in America. Some were born in the African continent, and came here because of that British Empire connection. So we came here for maybe different reasons. So it might have been to just, it was a better option for us compared to where we were. It might have been that we came to study. We might have come here to go to school, or just work, or just want a life. You know, Black people are adventurous people. We've been walking the earth since millennia. You know what I mean? So I think I just wanted to do that. And we were in different arenas, you know, from politics to art, to sports, to entertainment, crafts people, seafarers, nursery maids, nobility, you name it. We were in every aspect of life. And I think it's really important for us to tell our stories, but I think it's really important to tell those stories in an interesting format, so that people feel engaged and connected to not just the love story, but the world that I have to create that kind of supports that love story. So you have to pull all these different aspects of the research that you do into the story. So that's kind of the sort of where I struggled and the challenges and how I came about, you know, eventually, miracle of miracles, actually producing a book.
Yeah. Yeah. Love how deep your story is. And even just the way you're narrating and sharing with me, I'm I'm getting that feeling of it's really an enriched story that you have brought to life. Yeah. And you are shedding a lot, talking about people growing up in a different country, people from just the Black history. That's what I'm feeling from how you're expressing yourself, like Blackness, and also celebrating who we are in a way. And to tie that with love, I think that would be then interesting. I would love to. I love a romantic story. I love a romantic story as well because it takes you to this place that you never imagined.
Yeah.
But now you're sharing about the complexity of how love can be as well. Feelings, and sometimes people experiencing love, and maybe they found their true love, but they still feel connected to the past of the love that they've experienced in the past. Those types of different scenarios that people are experiencing. But most of the time when people say, oh, move on, they just expect you like, okay, move on. Yes, move on because now you have this person in front of you, and you should move on because you should be grateful you found this love. But some people are still connected to the past, and some people are even connected to so many people, or some people are not even actually feeling grateful for the love that is in front of them. So really love your story so far. You say now the book is still in pre-orders. Are they able to order it online on Amazon, or how are you doing the pre-orders currently?
So if you go to my website, snclayton.com, I've got the button to pre-order. And what it does, it takes you to my publisher's website. So you can pre-order from there. My publisher is Conscious Dreams Publishing. So just go to my website, and when you scroll down, you see the button for pre-orders. And then I will just keep you in touch as to how the book is going and when it's the exact date of when it's going to be ready.
Right. So what was happening in Northern London, so to say, or the Black communities within where you grew up, is the story really linked to your own life? Is it more linked to other people's lives? As you say, it's a true story, it's not a true story. You can highlight on that, and maybe how much of your own life has inspired the journey of you writing or partly having this serial out?
That's an interesting question, actually, because you know how I start the book? A modern love story opens the door to a long ago love and a shared history. That modern love story is actually in the prologue. So in the prologue, it actually starts with one of Celia's, two of her ancestors. So it actually starts with Ed and Celia having this connection further in the future. So it starts in 1985. And their descendants, two of their descendants actually get together. And so it's the aunt of the descendant who has the journals of Celia, and she passes on these journals. She wants to tell her niece about the journals. And so it starts with her telling the story of Celia. So she actually has Celia's journals. So it starts in 1985, and it starts in Tottenham, North London. So that's a part of me there in that respect, because I think Tottenham has a very negative perception because of mainstream media, because years and years ago, we had like Broadwater Farm riots, and it just became known as the Tottenham riots. And Broadwater Farm is a very, square little patch, compared to the rest of Tottenham. And I think in a way I wanted to say, you know what, I had a fantastic time growing up in Tottenham. It's just like anywhere else. Big houses, small houses, leafy streets, parks that we could play in. I had a wonderful upbringing. As I said before, multiracial, multicultural, multi-class. It introduced me to the world without me having to leave, to go anywhere in the first place. And so I suppose I wanted to just show that side of Tottenham and set the record straight a little bit in that respect. So there's a part of me in terms of, you know, the prologue and how I explain their upbringing and that. So there's that part of me, definitely. And I think in the book, I think the other part of me, because really the book is they're based around the Bloomsbury area of London. I don't know if you know, like Tottenham Court Road, Oxford Street, Charing Cross Road, very kind of famous tourist spots really now. But obviously back then they weren't so touristy, you know, but they live in that area. But I think how I brought myself into the story was the characters, especially Celia and her best friend Amelia, and a few other people are bookworms, and they have a literary society. And I kind of, you know, they discuss books of that time and books written by, you know, Black and mixed race people of that time. And so I think I brought that into it. And I think I also wanted to bring the fact that, like I said before, we came from all walks of life. Our story is not always struggle. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah, struggle, it's challenging, but many successful stories about us doing well in challenging circumstances. We're not always beneath someone's foot. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was just sort of bringing some balance to the table and saying, look, we come from all walks of life and always have and always will. We're not a monolith in that respect.
Yeah. And that brings me to a story, the question, the part of, what do you wish the audience, when they read and come across a shared history, what do you wish for them to take away mostly? And how this story, are you seeing people have been growing up? I feel you're speaking on history, but and as well, you want to shape in a way the narratives of how people are perceiving different people, especially people who move to different countries. Yeah. Do you have any inspiration or motivation that you want the people who are going to read a shared history they should be able to take away from? Or it's more of, okay, let me just enjoy this very sophisticated, interesting story that you brought forward?
I want them to enjoy the entertaining element of the romance, but I also want them to be entertained by the historical elements of it. If they're not familiar with Victorian life in London, and most certainly not familiar with the Black mixed race elite who did really well at that time, and maybe they're not as familiar with the fact that as a diaspora, we had more communication than you would think. So, for example, Celia's father, he was a seafarer. He was a blackjack. The blackjacks were Black and mixed race seafarers. They went all over the world. So if anything was going on in Africa, the Caribbean, America, you know, England, Black people around the world would know about it. They don't get enough attention, but they were like our telegraph service, you know? So they would bring news of uprisings, or they would bring news of just positive things going on, negative, whatever it was, they would bring news. So we would know what was going on and think, oh, wow, that's happening. Yeah, we can do that too, kind of thing. So they were a big part of that sort of communication system as a diaspora. So I do touch on that. And I weave these different stories in. So, for example, I did quite a bit of research, and that included books like Staying Power by Peter Fryer, Blackjacks, as I've just mentioned, by Jeffrey W. Bolster, Black Americans in Victorian Britain by Jeffrey Green, Black and British, David Olusoga, and How to Be a Victorian, Ruth Goodman. So that's just part of my research. I did, you know, British Library was a big part of my research, UCL, University College London. So what I've done is, at the back of the book, I've done the reading list. So I've done a reading list for people. So I suppose what I want people to come away with is, yes, you get a bit of escapism, But wrapped around that is
Yes.
an interesting dynamic history that you can do some further research on your own, you know. So I've given them some tools to keep it moving, and let me do my whatever kind of resonates with them, they can do further research with that, you know. So it's kind of interweaving, I think, a very complex story of the diaspora. Yeah,
Yes.
you know, it's
yes.
because they all have different backgrounds. Though Ed, yes, he's white, he's British, but he has a Caribbean African ancestor. Celia, her parents, one is from the Caribbean, one is from America. Nathan, his background is Sierra Leone. Her friend Amelia has a white father, but a Sierra Leonean mother. So I'm saying this is what it kind of looked like. Migration and from different parts of the empire was a thing, and people were born here as well and had lives here, you know. So it's just weaving all that together and showing people we were a little bit more connected than you might think.
Can you read for us a part of the book anywhere that you feel comfortable with reading, either at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end? And how many chapters do you have in the book? Yeah, you can.
Sorry, what did you ask initially, Rose? It cut out there. What did you ask me initially?
Yeah, like initially, like maybe at the beginning of the book, you could read. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can read any part of the book that you feel comfortable with. Yes.
Right. I'll read the beginning. I won't read the epilogue. I'll read what might draw you in, I think, a lot quicker into the story. Yeah. So as I said, Lady Benwick is a bit of a manipulator, right? So let's start with Lady Benwick. Okay. So chapter 1, London, 1880. So I'll read a little bit for you. No, Lady Benwick, I do not see your point. I have nothing to hide, said Mr. Henderson, the local curate of 2 churches within the parish. The churches were attended by professionals, the gentry and aristocratic families who had townhouses in the central London area of Bloomsbury. Edwina Faintree, officially known as Lady Benwick, was not impressed with his answer. She squinted watery blue eyes up at him, an indicator of both disdain and short-sightedness. She was too vain to wear glasses. How dare he answer so insolently, she thought. Who does he think he is? He's nothing but a pompous philanderer. What if I were to tell your esteemed parishioners that there were rumors of embezzlement in your past, Lady Benwick retorted. Daniel had turned his long back to her to retrieve some paperwork from his desk. He spun around on his heel faster than a whirling dervish. In fact, he spun so fast that Lady Benwick thought he might keep spinning. Such was the force of his outrage. Then you would be ruining not just mine, but the legacy and trust of the charity's reputation. Many of the recipients rely on the church's support and donations from wealthy families. Why would you destroy that with such malicious lies? They were both on the board of the charity set up by his predecessor to aid fallen women who had become pregnant and needed support and shelter. Nevertheless, please bear in mind that if this rape accusation is acted upon, you will live to regret it. You would be surprised how easily willing witnesses can be found. Lady Benwick said, I have found that when it comes to the lower orders, every man has his price, or woman as it may be, she sniffed haughtily. Barely able to contain his frustration at this ludicrous situation, Daniel eyed her wearily. My dear lady, your precious grandson, Ed, has been accused of rape. You expect me to ignore such a serious allegation? And may I remind you that it was not so long ago that your own daughter was married to a member of the so-called lower orders who saved your family from financial ruin. You are impertinent, Mr. Henderson, Lady Benwick rose, incensed that this insolent man would dare to challenge her. He might well be from a respectable aristocratic family, but as the younger son, as far as she was aware, he barely had a penny to his name and was living in the family townhouse in Cartwright Gardens. You need not remind me of my now deceased son-in-law's dubious ancestry. However, in matters of the family's reputation, needs must prevail. My only regret is that my daughter being landed with an upstart husband who was so proud of his blackamoor grandmother as if she had been Queen Victoria herself. Indeed, my dear Lady Benwick, blackamoor is such an old-fashioned term. These days, as far as I'm aware, the preferred term is coloured. So that's a little bit of chapter 1. And what's happened is Lady Benwick, she's gone to see the curate, who has had a young girl come to him to say that Ed, Celia's beloved, has been accused of rape. And she's come to kind of suppress that accusation, whether it's true or not in that respect. But it gives you a little insight into the history, because remember I said that Ed has African ancestry, and that is because his father was, back then, he was quarter black, and he would have been classified as an octoroon. So his father inherited quite a bit of money from his father, so his grandfather, because the father was white and had left money to him. So that's kind of how that works in that respect. So it's showing you that there are like a lot of connecting dots that you wouldn't necessarily put together. But her family, her aristocratic family, yeah, they've got the name, but at that point the finances were gone. So she allowed him to marry her daughter. So although she allowed him to marry her daughter, she still has disdain for the fact that, well, you know, it's a bit of hypocrisy in a way. She wanted the money, but not the fact that he had that ancestry in that respect.
I love the story. The way you're narrating it. I just love that.
Thank you. So I suppose it kind of makes it
on the side.
It makes the story complicated from the start, doesn't it? Because I'm already, I suppose, putting Ed in a bad
light.
Yes,
it does.
So you need to find out whether it's true or not. So it's already going to be a challenge, right? So
yeah. Also, how long have you taken about the following books? How has it been so far? Yeah, maybe you can share light.
So the second book is called A Shared Destiny. That will be about Celia's best friend, Amelia. She's mixed race. And then the third book will be about, not Amelia, sorry, Georgia. She's mixed race. And then she's got a sister, an older sister, who's Black. They have a Sierra Leone background and British background. So Amelia, she goes off to America in the third book. So I have to, that's going to be in New York and the Black West of America. She goes to marry someone who lives in the Black West of America in the third book. So at the moment, I'm actually writing the second and the third book simultaneously. I'm writing them together. So I would say I'm on the third draft of the second book and the second draft of the third book.
Do you get, are you full-time writer? Because that sounds like a lot of research that you have to do.
Do you know what? I'm part-time writer. I'm lucky because I like a lot of these books I told you about. I would read them anyway. I read them anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like you just incorporate as part of your research. But yeah, when I have to have a schedule, otherwise it won't happen. Like I said, I'm a plotter, I'm a planner.
Yeah.
So I have to have a schedule because it would be like sometimes you can't be bothered.
Yes. What time would you be writing?
Sorry, you cut off there, Rosalia. What did you say?
Yeah, I say what time, most likely what time do you write in the morning? Have an idea, let me write it down, or yeah, just to share on the journey of writing.
See, when I'm in it, so I have a schedule, okay? And I write every other week.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it, because in between that, I'm publishing the book, so there's stuff that needs to get done. And then I work full-time as a business educator. So every other week I have my writing schedule. But it's not to say if I have an idea, sometimes I have to run to my notebook quick and quickly scribble it down. you know, but generally I tend to write. And when I say I write, when I write the story, the first draft, I write it by hand. I don't go onto the computer. That's just, I just can't just get onto the computer like that. I have to write it by hand. I have more of a flow. So I do the first draft by hand, and then the second draft, I kind of copy type it and edit it at the same time. And then thereafter, I kind of add layers to it. So I might think, okay, I need more detail here. I need more detail there. I need to describe this environment more. So when I'm writing it by hand, I might put a note and say, describe this room, describe this, describe that, describe what they're wearing. Because if you try and do too much in the first instance, it will slow you down. So the most important thing I would say to anybody, who's a budding writer, if you're having trouble getting the story out, get the story out. The finer details you can layer in, look at it like building a quilt. You can layer it in within each draft. So the first draft, get the bare bones down, the blueprint, get the dialogue, as much of the dialogue down as you can. The second draft, okay, now you're maybe going to describe what people are wearing, that type of thing. Describe the room, describe the environment in more detail. Then maybe the third draft, you might put some action in, like, okay, we need some action in here. What are they going to move? Are they going to move? Are they going to move over here? Then the next draft, it might be, I will look at the cinematic elements. So what are they seeing? What are they hearing? What are they tasting? So I put all those elements in, and that's the way I write in that respect. But I'm not a writer that writes, daily. That's not me. I need that week to think. My writing is thinking. A lot of my writing is just thinking in my head, thinking things through. And I need to digest it, then come back to it in that respect. So, but I have to have a schedule because, can you imagine you've got, you had a full day of work. You just think, I don't want to open up this laptop again, not in the mood. But if it's in my schedule, it's like, okay, let me go and have something to eat, chill out for a bit, then open up the laptop and do what I need to do, or open up my notebook if it's just I'm writing,
Thank you so much, Sonji, for sharing your story and also just sharing with our audience. I would love you to that earlier. Maybe the person is just on other parts of the world. How can they get the book?
Okay, so I missed part of that. What did you say? The connection went again. Did you hear what I said? Okay, I'll just say, because I'm not sure the connection's gone.
Yeah, it sounded like she was asking you, where can people get the book?
Okay, so people can get the book at www.snclayton.com. So that's SN Clayton, CLAYTON.com. You can follow me on Twitter on @micro MICRO biz BIZ SNC @microbizsnc on Twitter. I'm building my brand on Twitter at the moment, so it would be lovely if you can come and connect and engage with me on there. So those are that's my social and that's my website in that respect. I don't know where Rosalia has gone. I think her connection has disconnected. Okay. Oh, she's coming back. Is she coming back?
Yeah.
I'm back, ladies. I'm back.
Oh, that's good.
Sorry. I was speaking on how can we get the book? How can the audience get the book? You have mentioned on your website. Maybe you can speak on, do you have any plans for Amazon? And yeah.
So I just mentioned the website. So I'll say it again. It's SN Clayton, CLAYTON.com. My Twitter handle is @microbizsnc. So that's MICROBIZSNC. Biz, BIZSNC. At the moment, like I said, once it's been published, it's actually going to, I mean, I've got a situation with my publisher. She's really good, Daniela Bleckner. So it's going to be distributed to unbelievably 39,000 outlets, I think. So bookstores and online outlets, including the typical sort of Amazon, Kobo, I think Waterstones, Barnes and Noble. So it will have quite a wide distribution. So, you know, and obviously if you want the print book for pre-order, so it's the print book that's on pre-order. The ebook isn't ready yet, obviously. But you can go to the website again, and that will take you to my publisher's website, and you can pre-order the book.
Yes, I've mentioned, thank you so much for sharing that. Really interesting, intricate, I would say, something that is not the ordinary. Yeah, I can, the way I'm hearing a story, it's so unique. It's so unique and speaks on great aspects of society in a way that I have to applaud you for that. And for how far you've come in your writing journey. We are expecting more and more stories after for the next 2 books that you're about to publish as well. And in the final stage of the episode, I would like you to share anything that you feel we have not touched on regarding your story, regarding what you found out while you're researching, maybe even just an encouragement or a motivation for anyone.
I mean,
the aspects of love and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I would say in terms of anybody who wants to maybe write a book and they don't really know where to start, I would say start by doing some research, writing some books on writing. Find out if you're a plotter or a planner. Sorry, not a plotter or planner, a plotter or a pantser. I think that's really important because that's where a lot of the blocks come in. I would say once you've figured that out, look into the costs because, you know, there is that, you know, do you want it to be a side hustle, an author business? Then you need to look into what that entails. And so that maybe will direct you in terms of who your target market is going to be, what genre you're going to write in. If you're doing it just purely for pleasure, you don't care about that, then that's fine. You know, you can kind of be a bit less discerning about what that genre is. But I would say you need to make writing a habit, but you've got to create your own habit. Okay, so you can try other people's models of writing, but you've got to find your own way because that's what's going to keep you consistent. But it does help if you're passionate about the genre that you're writing in and you're very kind of familiar with reading that genre as well. You need to do a lot of reading in that genre to get a handle on how am I going to create my voice? How am I going to create my style? So I think that's really, really important is whether you're a plotter or a pantser, reading a lot so you can form your own voice, your own style, and thinking about whether it's just for pleasure or whether you actually want to build an author business.
All right. And do you have anything to mention on shared history that we've not spoken on? A shared history that we did not speak on?
Not really. I think it's a really very much that word edutainment. I love that word. And I think it is an entertaining story from what I've been told by others who have read it, you know, worked on it. And so if you're not keen on, if you've never really been that interested in Black history, use it as a tool as a learning moment, but be entertained at the same time. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And just we you know, look at just that adventurous side of you know, Black people in the diaspora comes out in, it will come out in the whole series. You'll see that adventurous and creative side in us and the way we kind of just get on with life. You know, we focus on our visions and we create the visions, we create our own opportunities, and we succeed regardless. And I think that's what the book series really is trying to push, really, in that respect.
All right, thank you. We are coming to the end of our episode. We'd love to hear also what are the audience expecting in the future from you as an author? Which direction are you going? Will you continue writing after the first 3 books that you finish soon? You can share that on, and then we'll invite Nadine. Thank you so much for being here. You can also ask a question to Sonji, but before that, you can, Sonji, you can share your vision. I mean, what's next for you as a writer, as an author, and all that, and then we can allow Nadine to go.
Okay, so I'm looking at writing a couple more books in the romantic fiction genre. So one will be set in the 90s, and then I want to go all the way back to African civilizations. So I'll have another one going back to African civilizations. I still haven't decided. It might be just a book with 3 short stories, both of them, because I want to produce them quite quickly. Or it might be just one story, not quite sure yet, but it's looking like it might be 2 short stories in one book, set in the 90s, that kind of golden era with hip hop, R&B, soul, that type of thing. Yeah, so it's going to be like that. And then the African civilizations, I kind of want to touch on different African civilizations and set a romance around that. So that might be 2 or 3 short stories in one book in that respect. Once I've done that, I would like to write something non-fiction historical at some point. So bring all that research together, and put something together. Something just quick, like maybe a quick, 50 facts, or 100, something like that, that type of thing. So deep, but quick. Do you know what I mean? Just a quick read for people.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I get it. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience. Yeah, Nadine, thank you for being here as well. Please ask Sonji any question that you have before we wrap up the episode. She said that she'll be going out in a minute. So yes, let's finalize for this episode. Nadine, welcome. And do you have any questions?
Thank you. Before I ask any questions, I'd just like to say your book sounds very intriguing. I've been looking a lot at historical fiction.
Thank you.
And as you talked about, your Jamaican connection, I'm also from Jamaica. Yes. And my grandfather, migrated to England in the 1940s. My mother was born in Jamaica, but he went and had another family there. And so I have aunts and uncles, like 5, 6 aunts and uncles still living in Balham and Clapham.
Yeah.
And so I know I've never been to Tottenham, but I've heard about it, know people from there. And I studied in England, but I was in Cambridge. So I know a little bit about London, and a little bit about, and I know the whole, so it's great to hear this kind of story, because as you said, I like the thing that you said, Black history is not all about struggle, because every time you want to say something about Black history, it's all, people think it's just, okay, it was slavery and it was hardship and people had this, whatever, but it was never anything that we had love and we had, friendship, and it was just all struggle. And I think that's so dark and so sad. So my question to you is, do you see your books becoming like a mini-series on TV? Because I know they have these mini-series on TV in England. I watch a lot of them. So what about the mini-series on TV?
You know what? It's so funny, Nadine, because the minute people hear the storyline, they're like, so what if they ask you, what if Hollywood comes, or what if the TV people come? And I'm like, I don't know, because it's almost like very surreal to think of that. I understand that I think it is the type of story that would interest them. And I think Bridgerton has set that pace, right? So I know Bridgerton has set that pace. And it's funny because when it came, I thought, oh, this is interesting. This is good timing for me because it's set in Britain. Do you know what I mean? And obviously it's another entertaining, kind of surreal reimagination of the author's original story. So in the back of my head somewhere, I know if I do the PR right and I do the marketing right, which is integral to my author business, that it's more than likely that that may happen, but it may happen in different formats. It might not even be, you know, TV. It might be maybe someone would be interested in doing a play. So I understand there is that scope to go down other creative avenues. But I think at the moment, I don't, it's quite overwhelming getting the book done, you know, as you can imagine. So I think I need to focus on what's in front of me right now. And the important part is getting the marketing. Hence, I'm, you know, on platforms like these, give thanks, you know. So yeah, I've had a lot of those questions, and it makes me laugh because I just think that's just so surreal to me. Like, what?
Because I think this is the
it's
way
a possible reality. Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, but I just can't imagine being in the position of someone saying, "Oh, we're interested in." I'm thinking, what would I say? What would I do? You know. So, and I think it's really important for me. You know, like you just said, you're glad to see Black characters and mixed race characters in different scenarios. I'm very precious about that. You know, so I think for me, it's again about values, isn't it? Because I want to know how much creative license am I going to have if I give you the rights to this. You know, are you going to suddenly switch my positive characters into negative characters? Because I've seen it happen before, you know, so there's the pros and the cons, aren't there? So I think that would always be an underlying concern. And I think that our image out there is very important to me, and it needs to be balanced. And if I've written the book a certain way, I don't want you coming and switching these characters to the point where they're unrecognizable. So there's two sides to it, because yeah, it gets more exposure, but what type of exposure am I going to get? So I still have to think about that. But that's a really, that question, I love that question because it always makes me laugh. I just think, oh my gosh, it keeps coming up, but I keep thinking, wow, what would I say? What would I do if this actually happened, you know?
And do you think you're going to write any books that will make connection to your Jamaican history or Jamaican heritage?
Well, in the book, I've definitely made connections to Jamaica. So Celia's father's Jamaican, Ed's great-grandfather is Jamaican. So there's definitely that connection. And it kind of moves around the abolitionist movement of the 18th, early 19th century. So I kind of make that connection there. So, I mean, I'm Jamaican. There's no way I'm not going to include Jamaica in the... Do you know what I mean? I'm British and Jamaican back. There's no way I couldn't be writing that story. And I'm talking about the diaspora and not mention Jamaica. But obviously I mentioned different places and different backgrounds around the diaspora. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a really, really solid series. And I'm sure many people are looking forward to it. And I mean, I've now seen a lot more series written by, you know, Black people and Black actors in British media, because I still do watch, you know, like ITV and all these British televisions. And I'm happy to see that and to see, okay, you know, because that makes me feel good, you know, knowing that this is also coming out, and I want to see more writers expressing this. So I just want to say it's really great seeing your work and all the stuff you said about writing as well, you know, having that writing habit and knowing that what you are going to do as a writer. So my last question is, when you're not writing, what other creative things do you do? Do you have any other creative outlets?
Do you know what? It's funny because I'm quite a creative person. In the past, in my previous life, I've always been a business educator, but in the past, I was a makeup artist. I've been a makeup artist and stylist when I was younger. I used to just do that as my side hustle and did quite well with that, actually. And I used to run a knitwear label for a good few years. But I had to actually exit that business because my late mother became ill. So I became her informal carer. So I kind of had to exit that business. But I've always been creative. You know, I've always been writing anyway. And I think you saying that is it actually quite interesting, because I keep thinking like maybe I need to get, because I haven't knitted for a while. I haven't done any knitting or crochet anything. And I think, you know what, Sonji, you need to do something where you're not trying to make money from it. I'm always trying to like, okay, how can I make a little change from this?
You're writing, because that, as a writing coach, is what I teach people, that when you have other outlets, it's enriching your writing as well. Because as you're sitting there knitting, you know, and all of that.
And that's, in a way, to be honest, Nadine, that's why I have a writing schedule and it's every other week. I want my writing to be enjoyable. I want to say, oh, it's my writing week. Not, oh, good, it's my right. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to, even though it's like it's for me a side hustle, and I want to build on it. So, you know, maybe do speaking, you know, facilitating, teaching around that. That's fine. That's how I'll build the business side of it. But I don't want to stop enjoying it, because that's actually happened with my knitwear label. It was just became so much of a business. I actually lost the enjoyment of knitting and crocheting. So when I had to exit the business to take care of my mum, I never continued knitting, because it just always felt like a business to me. It's only now I'm thinking, nah, how am I going to get back into my knitting, and just for pleasure, just maybe knitting for people. You know, maybe I just thought, you know, let me start knitting for people, doing, you know, little things, and, you know, maybe for Christmas and things like that, because I need an outlet where I'm not doing it with purpose. I'm doing it just for me, just to chill, just to relax. And it's good for your mental health as well, isn't it? So, yeah. Do you have hobbies, by the way?
I'm not good at painting, but I like to do it. I like, you know, trying my hand at painting. Okay. And I have a journal. It's just called Wreck This Journal. It just has a barrage of things you can just do, like pressing leaves, doing this kind of art. I just do it just to enhance my creativity, basically.
Right.
Yeah. And cooking.
Cooking. Oh yeah, that's a lovely. I love cooking as well. Actually, it's a lovely outlet. Yeah, yeah. Very organic as well, isn't it? You have to eat, so you might as well make it interesting. Yeah.
And if you're Jamaican, yeah, you should be able to make some Jamaican food and all that.
That's right. So, yeah. Something, 1 or 2 or 3 dishes. Yeah, definitely. What about you, Rose? Have you got any hobbies?
Hobbies. I love cooking as well. Love cooking. Okay. Cleaning is maybe my hobby. I love cleaning as well.
You love cleaning? Oh, I don't love cleaning. No. I dread it, but no. Yeah. That's good that you love cleaning.
I do a lot of cleaning,
isn't it? Because that makes it real easy. Yeah.
It's a good outlet. You can clean your space. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's reward, because I don't like cleaning, but once I've done it, I'm like, oh, it's done. Yeah, that's good. You know. So yeah.
Yeah. And my last question, you said you write by hand, right? Because Oh, you're finishing. I'll just say the last thing I'll say, you say you write by hand. Yeah. But I was writing by hand and I love it, but I was so slow when I started to retype that I decided just start getting modern. People are like, just get modern, use your computer. So this is my journal, and I just like, I'm writing all the time.
Well, it's the thing, you've got to find your own way, don't you? You've got to find your own way. But what do you write, Nadine, before we...
I write poems. I write poetry.
Oh,
and memoirs. Yeah.
Lovely. That's really nice. Yeah. I think when I was younger, I used to write poetry, but I think you kind of try different things and then you find what resonates with you, don't you, in that respect? So yeah, that's really good. That's nice. Thanks for your questions though. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you too.
All right. Thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Sonji, for being here today. I will stop recording, and in case they send something else we want to share on, if we can do that.
I just wanted to say thank you, Rose.
And thank you. We are a podcast. Yes. You are welcome. Hoping to speak to you even after you've completed more stories. Yeah, you are welcome.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.